We are ready and waiting for you now. If it's a fight that you dare see, we've acquired our strength through pain. No more are we pathetic again. You are the reason why we claim that we've all become this way. And I regret this prison that I've created for myself.
Thanks so much for watching or listening to the Music is Live podcast. Wherever you want to listen to it or watch it, you can find all that information over at musicisLivepodcast.com. My name is Lou Mavs. I'm the host of the show. I have a special guest with me. I have, in my opinion, and the camera's pointing at you right now, Damiano, so I'm just letting you know that. I have, in my opinion, one of the preeminent, most awesome guitar players in the tri-state area, which includes Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. I am so happy to have him on the show today. I had the pleasure of meeting him and speaking with him and getting to know him when we were both asked to partake in the, I guess you could call it the benefit song that we did for the essential workers when the pandemic broke out. We partook in a cover of the Ronnie James Dio song Stars, and this guy killed it. He was highlighted so much throughout the song and the video, and all I could say was it was well deserved. And I am not one of those guitar players who feels like I'm better than everybody. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I always know I could improve, but this guy makes me want to practice harder. And as you can look in my house right now, I have my entire gear set up: Black Star amps, Ibanez bass, Dean guitars, and I got the little Steinberger back. Where is it? It's so small you can't see it. I have a Steinberger, and I love it. Actually, we'll talk about the Steinberger in a little. I'm not done talking about you yet. Anyways, this guy, in my opinion, is someone who's going to be killing it. I hope for him. He is on future covers of Guitar World magazine. You've already been highlighted in Guitar World magazine, right? So, okay, so now you just got to make the cover. Bucket list, all set. He is the lead guitar player of the band Sacred Oath, and he's also in a Def Leppard tribute and an Ozzy tribute, and we'll talk about that soon. But I'm so happy to have on the show today Mr. Damiano Christian.
Thank you.
Damiano, what's going on?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing the show with me today. I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old. I'm 40 now, if you couldn't tell by the gray hairs in the video. And one thing I've always wanted to do was improve as a guitar player. I sent Damiano the solo that I cut for Stars, watched his video, and I highly respected what he was doing. And I asked him if he could give me some pointers. And he gave me the one pointer that no one ever did, and I was dumb enough never to do, and that was use your pinky finger. And I admit, I don't know why. Maybe range of motion or just me stopping myself from doing it. But the moment I started using my pinky more, I felt like my playing got better. And I have him to thank for that. So I wanted to go in public and say thank you for the
You're
sage
welcome.
advice of me
You're
using my
welcome.
goddamn pinky on the fret hand.
Thank you.
So I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, on to the show with Damiano. Good sir, I see you have a bunch of Eddie Van Halen posters. And is that Steve Stevens back there too?
Yes, sir, that is Mr. Steve Stevens himself.
Quite an underrated musician, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
What got you hooked?
I think about the time I was 8, my dad bought the very first Fender Squier starter kit guitar that every kid gets, and that just
Oh, the bullet?
yeah. Mine surprisingly though had no bullet, and I was really bummed it didn't have the bullet. So that was the one that just sat in the corner like every kid does at that age. And originally I had started with piano when I was 3, so that was my main instrument up until I started guitar. I didn't actually pick up the guitar again till I was 11. And what started that was, this was right around the time I want to say the very first iPod Touch came out, like first generation iPod Touch. I had my little iPod Touch. I was going to school, and my dad put his whole what was it, LimeWire library on there.
LimeWire? We don't promote stealing from musicians.
Oh, I know. I didn't know back then. I was a little kid. I was like 11 years old. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just listen to my dad's music on my bus ride to school. So I'm in the bus. I've got my headphones on, and I'm scrolling through all the artists. Half of them I didn't even know. At that point, I'd only known about AC/DC, Elton John, Queen, and Yngwie Malmsteen.
All good choices.
Yeah, so... Oh, and Judas Priest, because I had seen Judas Priest the year before with my
Even
dad.
better choice.
Yeah, when I was 10, I saw Whitesnake open for Judas Priest here, and they were doing...
Is that the British Steel tour?
Yes, sir. It was
Okay.
30th anniversary of British Steel, but they were also touring for the Nostradamus album.
I think that was the last tour they did in the States with KK, if I recall.
Was. Yeah, so my first and only time I seen Judas Priest was with the almost original lineup, depending on who the drummer was.
Scott Travis, I think, has definitely taken over the mantle quite well. Definitely the longest lasting Priest drummer. He was in Racer X with Paul Gilbert and Bruce Boulez. Let's not take any credit away from him. He was in Fight with Rob Halford and the future Satchel of Steel Panther. Yes, and now he's in Priest. So this guy knows how to pick them.
Yeah, I know. And Whitesnake was opening for them. I had no clue who Whitesnake was. So there I was watching David Coverdale with Doug Aldrich and Reb Beach.
Nice.
And I think Rudy Sarzo was still on bass.
I did see their reunion tour when they opened for the Scorpions with Dokken. Yeah. And Marco Mendoza was actually the bass player by then.
Okay.
Rudy is such a nomad because at one point he was balancing Yngwie and Dio and Blue Oyster Cult, and now he's in the Guess Who.
And he also played with Jeff Tate's Queensryche. And
Let's not.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I started with the iPod Touch and going through the artists, and I got to Ozzy Osbourne, and I knew who Ozzy was, you know, Prince of Darkness, all black with the tassels and everything, but I didn't really know any of the solo stuff. I knew more Black Sabbath, like Paranoid and Iron Man.
That is funny because with me, I was born in 80. So my gateway to Ozzy was when I saw my brothers had the cassettes, Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, and Bark of the Moon.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize he was in Black Sabbath until afterwards. Because I remember asking when I first heard Master of Reality, I say, why does he sound like a little kid? This is new, isn't it? You know, like how smart I was. Those first 2 albums that I mentioned, you know, the great and influential and amazing and beloved Randy Rhoads.
Exactly, and that's how I got started on the guitar at 11. There was, I think it said like Ozzy Osbourne / Randy Rhoads live, and I just seeing the name for some reason, Randy Rhoads, like piqued my interest. I clicked on it, and I had no clue what the song was. All it said was Revelation Mother Earth live.
Oh, so good.
And I'm sitting there listening to it. And all I could think of is, what the hell am I listening to? I've never heard anything like this before.
He was one of the first metal guitar players to include classical playing into his style. I mean, definitely before Yngwie did.
Oh yeah, and I got to the solo at the end, and that's kind of what gave me the bug for wanting to play guitar was that solo.
Nice.
So, and I knew in the house there was a magazine that I have right here actually. It said Randy Rhoads on it, and I'm like, I made the connection on the bus. I'm like, that must be the guy on my dad's magazine.
Here it is. Yep. Guitar Legends with Randy Rhoads on the cover. Jesus Christ, he looked like a rock god.
So this was the magazine that my dad had because my dad was trying to learn to play guitar. His brother's a guitar player. I remember this magazine was sitting in the house, so I made the connection, and I was like, I wonder if that song is in this book. So I remember they had put tabs for some of the songs. It was the last song in the book.
Not to mention Revelation, Mother Earth, and Steal Away the Night, they both go hand in hand, so they're both in there. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, Steal Away is in here too. So I went home. I knew I had the guitar laying somewhere, so I found the guitar. I found the magazine. I went right to the page where it has the guitar solo. So I was like, that's the part I want to learn. I had never played a guitar before. I had only years of experience with the piano. It's still in here like it was the day I opened it.
It still looks fresh and brand new.
I know. My dad takes very good care. It's like spotless.
Yeah, and to back up what he's saying, his dad had a Rat Invasion of Your Privacy t-shirt.
Yes, sir.
And it still looks...
You would laugh if you knew where I found that shirt.
Let me guess, in the bottom of a box in a basement.
Yeah, it had tons of garbage piled on top of it, and it was in his mother's basement. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and like my dad was pulling stuff out, and he was like, "I hope there's like not a mouse in here or something."
That'd be ironic if there was a mouse in a rat t-shirt. The crazy thing is, you look at this shirt and you think, "Oh my God, did you buy this in a vintage t-shirt store?" No, it's the original one.
And it was like the only thing not damaged in the box. Everything had been like eaten up by stuff. This was the only thing in the box that was like pristine and not a hole in it.
Go figure.
And it was in the very bottom of the box. My dad, I brought the box home from his mother's house, and we were going to it because he told me it was in the house. We didn't find much in it. Found a couple cool shirts he cut up into tank tops and stuff, and we threw the box in the garbage to go into the dump the next day. So something in my head was like, there's probably something in that box, because he didn't want to dig through the whole thing. He kind of just half-assed it and threw it away.
Sometimes you got to dig down the rabbit hole to find something cool.
So I go down the bottom of the box and I see this pink fabric popping out at me, and I pull it out and I see Rat Invasion of Your Privacy tour, and it's the tour t-shirt. So
oh my God, he was at the tour. That's crazy. So he got to see King Robin Crosby and Warren D. Martini in all their glory.
Yes, sir. New Haven Coliseum, 1985.
Had to have been 85 because I think 86 is when Dancing Undercover came out. And for me, that was like my last 10 out of 10 Rat album until Infestation came out. The one that Warren played with Carlos from Quiet Riot on, which is a great album, and I recommend anyone to hear that.
So I went from learning the Randy Rhoads stuff at 11, and I was hooked on him since the start of it. I would pull up any videos of him I could find from After Hours. There's a bootleg from 1982 Chicago. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like the first 5 songs of the show, shot with 35mm camera.
I think it was either 8mm or 16mm, and I think it was, I don't know, Crazy Train. I think Revelation, Mother Earth, and Steal Away were on that too, right? And it was like a wide shot film where they somehow sync the audio to it.
Yeah, and this one started though with Over the Mountain.
That's right. He did start the Diary tour with Over the Mountain. I wish I could have seen that. There's no actual pro shot footage of that tour. Well, okay, listen, there's some things we don't need to talk about on the show because I don't want like some mafioso hitman coming up to you going, I heard you got something. I heard things. We don't need that.
It's not me who's got it. There was a plan to release a bunch of stuff, and the guy who was behind it kind of just blew the whole thing up and ruined it.
You had it all and you blew it! You blew it! You blew it!
I've seen the footage for myself, and I'm like, wow, this is what's being held from everybody.
It was supposed to have been released? I never heard that.
Yeah, there was about 3 concerts worth of footage, one from 82 and 2 from the Blizzard tour. And the one from 82 was from Cabo. There's video of Randy with his brand new black and gold Jackson playing Flying High Again.
Right, because he was always synonymous with the white with the gold binding, right? So yeah.
So, and they even had footage of his Suicide Solution guitar solo with the band jam they would do.
On the Speak of the Devil home video.
Brad does it, yeah.
And you know what? The hardcore Ozzy fans know the contributions that Brad did. The common fan doesn't, because they only know what is available to them on streaming media. They don't have copies of Speak of the Devil unless they own it on CD. They don't have a lot of stuff because, well, let's face facts, Sharon discontinued a lot of it. And, you know, I just feel like if it wasn't for Brad to pick up the pieces, I don't know if Ozzy could have gone on. And that's not taking anything from Jakey Lee, because to me, he brought it to a different level, and all the credit in the world to him. I just feel like Brad, he did such a great job. And watching that concert video, I got to say, he sounded really good with Rudy and Tommy.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I've seen the whole thing, and I was like, wow, this dude pulled this all off in like less than 2 weeks.
Was it 2 weeks? I think it was one day. He had to learn the entire set list.
Oh, wow. I remember him saying 2 weeks. I think you're thinking of Steve Vai when he filled in for Yngwie when he got kicked out of Alcatraz, and Steve Vai learned all the Alcatraz songs on the plane flight in one day.
You know, I heard some crazy stories about Steve Vai. For example, like, he was such a Frank Zappa fan that Frank pretty much hazed him. Here's this song. See if you could transcribe all of it. Now do it in 7/13 time and this and that. And I'm just like, God, how much could one person take? Like, you know.
Well, he got that gig by transcribing like one of Zappa's records start to finish and sending it into him.
Yeah. And then he got the gig with Frank, and then he went to do Alcatraz, which I love that album. I think it's as good as No Parole for Rock and Roll. Yeah. Then he went on to do David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile. To me, that's better than any Van Hagar album, but that's just my opinion. And then he joined Whitesnake, and during that time, he built his name. You know, he kept Shred alive when in the 90s it was a bad word. When, you know, I remember those black days. They were horrible. So you've seen the video footage of Randy.
Yep, I've seen it on my phone. And then there was video footage from Diary Tour of them playing Believer, and he's got the white Jackson with the pinstripes on it.
Nice.
Someone has it, and he just refuses to release it, even though there was a plan to release it, and it kind of got all screwballed because people are people.
We are douchebags.
We are douchebags.
We are douchebags. Taking back the word, bitches.
Yes, and I want to show you, I think you might appreciate this. So being that Randy is in my top 3 ultimate guitar heroes along with Eddie and Tony Iommi, I searched the earth for any rare studio album that he could have put out, and I did find the Quiet Riot Japan records on eBay.
Nice.
Of course, they might be bootleg, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to put them on my computer and put them on the iPod anyways, but I'm sorry, not the iPod, the Apple phone, iPhone, iPod. I did find this on Discogs.
Yeah, I've listened to that record. That's a good album.
And it's crazy how so many of the songs, this is Quiet Riot, the Randy Rhoads years I'm holding up, and it's crazy how many songs from here went on to become Ozzy favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And like, if you're an Ozzy fan, like, if you knew about You Looking at Me, Looking at You before it came out as part of the official Blizzard of Oz packaging, the song Breaking Up is a Heartache, I mean, it's the same song. And I was like, damn it, Randy, what else could you have done?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that's a really cool record. I think what they just took his guitar parts. Kevin redid his vocals, and then they also re-recorded like the drums and the bass.
Supposedly that's just Drew Forsythe's drum parts that they remastered or whatever, but at the time I think Bobby Rodinelli was the drummer in Quiet Riot before Frankie rejoined, so we'll never know. Unfortunately, Kevin's no longer with us, but I was happy to learn it. I mean, I think they actually put get Randy's guitar tracks through Carlos's Marshall amp to get
Ah.
that tone that was
Mhm.
comparable to the tribute sound.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
that was some pretty cool mastery that they did on it.
Yeah, definitely. Unlike, what Sharon did to Blizzard and Diary.
Oh, you mean completely removing Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley's parts?
Yeah, yeah. And calling Rob Trujillo in to do it, and then he claims he had no idea what he was doing.
Listen, I'm not a misogynist. I don't believe in any kind of violence towards women, but fuck you, Sharon Osbourne.
And it was all to get out of paying Bob and Lee.
Bob wrote the damn lyrics.
Yeah, I know. And then Ozzy's like, oh, I had no idea that happened.
Yeah, I'm sure as shit that he didn't, but I digress. Anyways.
Yeah, so I know Brad definitely came in, did a good job, and but it would have been nice to see Randy in that DVD.
I guess we'll never know. And like every guitar player that's come and gone, I'm just glad for what they left. And,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I mean, if you think about it, you know, domestically and internationally, Randy will always be known for those first two Ozzy albums
Yeah,
and you know, influenced a whole generation of guitar players, you know, you and
yeah,
myself included.
definitely. Yeah, tons of people. He's inspired, and I was actually someone sent me a video the other day. This guy was doing one of these videos where he was going over the thought of if Randy Rhoads' legacy will last or not.
You would last? Why wouldn't it have lasted?
Yeah, because you can't find any videos of him. It's hard to access anything related to him because he died so young.
I think a lot of it might have to actually do with the Rhodes family
Yeah.
because they're the ones that actually kept back the official re-releases of the Quiet Riot albums from
Oh, really?
77 and 78 because they
Yeah.
felt like it wasn't representative of a good time for Randy as a musician
Yeah.
and they wanted to maintain his legacy. So if that's what the family says, and you know, you have to respect that.
Yeah, and definitely, I know Randy wasn't a fan of those records either, but like when it comes to any video footage of him playing with Ozzy, there's almost zero to none.
All that we really had was the After Hours thing, and I think they
Yeah,
removed that. I think it's
yeah,
only available for purchase on the Blizzard of Oz anniversary.
Mr. Crowley and I Don't Know is still on YouTube, but they took down Crazy Train and Suicide Solution. But you could also still look at all the Palladium footage from New York on YouTube.
Ah, yes, this is true. I do know that that is available.
There's a couple different camera angles. One person shot the second show from the balcony, and then another person shot, I think, the first show from front row on the floor.
To have been a fly on the wall to have seen that would have just been great.
I
Actually,
know.
one of the podcasters on the Rat Salad Review Network, which Music is Live podcast is part of, Ralph Vieira, he saw Ozzy when he did his first solo tour in
Mhm.
1980. He lives in Florida, and the first stop of the tour was in Florida. It was Ozzy with Randy, Rudy, and Tommy in the band,
Yeah.
and the opening acts were Def Leppard
Def
for
Leppard.
On Through the Night and Motorhead for their first tour.
Yeah.
Did you read Rudy Sarzo's book Off the Rails?
No, I didn't.
I highly recommend it. It's a great book. There's a part in the book where the guys in Def Leppard go to introduce themselves to Ozzy's band, and Randy goes to he goes to Pete Willis, goes, "Hi, I'm Randy." Pete Willis says, "Get the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear that." Because Randy in British means that, well, they're horny.
Do I make you horny, baby? Do I make you Randy?
I thought that was hilarious. I had to put the book down for like a minute just to like keep my composure.
Did they not know the lead guitar player's name in Ozzy Osbourne when they joined the tour?
Probably not. I mean, you know, because you gotta remember, Def Leppard came from a background of like, you know, Queen and Slade and T-Rex and
Yeah.
Thin Lizzy and UFO, so they probably weren't all Sabbath fans. I mean, you know, I just thought that was hilarious.
I've wanted to read his book. It's just I don't have time to ever sit down and do something peaceful like reading a book.
Yeah, you're always busy. You're always on the
Yeah.
go. I mean, you are a guitar teacher by trade.
Yep.
And you are in the band Sacred Oath. You've either released your new album, you're on the verge of releasing it.
We released it on April 2nd. It's been out now, I think, for a little over 2 weeks.
And it is available on streaming media.
Yep, you can get it on Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, and Bandcamp as well.
And if they directly want to support you and purchase a record, they could buy it through Bandcamp, or
Yeah.
do you have a site that they could go to learn more about the band?
Yeah, you can go on sacredoath.net. We have a website. You could also look up Sacred Oath on Facebook, and there will be links to all of our album purchase sites on both the website and the Facebook page, as well as Instagram. We're trying to really build up a presence with people on Instagram and social media platforms for this record, because we really want to get it out there and get people to listen to it. We already had to order another pressing of CDs because we went through the whole first one.
That is amazing news.
So I remember Rob told us that. I'm like, seriously, really? People are still buying CDs now?
Hey, listen, I have to be honest with you. Part of what I'm trying to do is keep physical media alive because, I do have an Apple iTunes subscription. But one of the things that saddens me the most is the fact that there's a lot of stuff that I would like to hear that is not available on iTunes, and it never will be. It's either out of print and never to be released again. So the only way you could listen to it is if you own the physical product. So I'm on Discogs.com, I'm on eBay, I'm on Oldies.com, looking for wherever I can find stuff. I owned so many CDs before I was married. I had to sell a lot of my stuff because at the time they took my overtime away, because at the time I was being paid hourly as opposed to being salaried. I was on a budget, and at the time I was getting married, and May 24th I'll be married 13 years, and we have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter. It was worth it, but I had to sell a lot of my my metal shirts. I had to sell a lot of my CDs and DVDs. So
T-shirts.
that's okay. I still have plenty.
Oh, nice, Motorhead, cool.
So I'm back into the physical media game again. But the fact that you ran out of your first pressing, and that's incredible because you hear people all the time like, nobody's buying CDs anymore. Well, where are you going?
I think the first pressing was something of about 500 CDs.
That's great. That's smart. You didn't go crazy and try to buy.
Exactly, because you never know if you're going to sell it quickly or if it's going to sit there for a while and you're going to be stuck with them. Because then it's like you don't get your money return on it.
I'm beginning to think Damiano might be the only one with any business sense in the music industry, because he's already mentioning return of investment. He's talking about...
Well, that's what you got. No one looks at it like that anymore, and that's why so many bands nowadays, newer bands, just fail because they're like, okay, if no one's gonna buy our shit, we got to get out there somewhere else. So why don't we just give it away?
Do you think a lot of them still study like the old formula of like how the music industry did things then? Or do you think they're just not adapting in general to like learn about self-publishing and learn about copyright control and learning about owning their own material? What do you think?
Well, I'd hope that new people in this industry know about copyright and owning their rights to their own music, especially with all of the stories that we've heard over the past 30 or 40 years regarding such legal battles regarding rights to music and, copyright and stuff, as we've seen well enough with all the bands we like, when they all fight over their own band name that they played under.
Well, I just don't know how many versions of the same bands you can have. I mean, like you got LA Guns, and then you have Steve Riley's LA Guns. You have Queensryche with Tyler Torrey, and then you have Jeff Tate's Queensryche.
It's like, can't you guys just get along and play as the band we all got used to and grew up seeing all the time?
Well, in the Queensryche, I know with that, it was crazy because it seemed like Jeff Tate almost usurped control from the band, and I don't think that was fair to the guys that have stuck it out, such as Michael Wilton and Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockefield, who we don't even know if he's in the band anymore at this rate.
Yeah, last I heard, he's left indefinitely as of like 2019.
Well, he just had a baby, I think, so...
Yeah, and then they said he was having some health issues.
Well, let's face it, I mean, the guys in Queensryche are not spring chickens. And I know that for a lot of bands that came up in the 70s and the 80s, because they still follow that crazy template of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, where... I don't know if you approve or not, but that's fine. I read somewhere that UFO would actually write off their their drugs as pharmaceuticals and use it
Yeah.
as a tax write-off. But
Oh yeah.
I don't think I would have survived.
Yeah, no, I mean, back then they did a lot more crazier shit than you can get away with nowadays, especially because there was no cell phones. There was no recording of everything and putting it on Facebook for the whole world to see if you did something bad, like throw a TV out the hotel window.
Yeah, I would have been I probably would have blended in well with the band Rush. I probably would have just, lit up a cigarette and read Tolkien or something.
Yeah, didn't they do weird stuff like that after gigs? Like they wouldn't party, they'd all go back to their rooms and read a book or something.
Read a book, smoke some pot, drink some beer, and probably brew some Tim Hortons coffee. Who knows? But I love Rush. So
yeah, Rush is. But yeah, went back to the Sacred Elf thing. It's like you see a lot of bands just struggle because they have no business sense, really. They're always scraping together money to do their next recording or something. And don't you make any money when you play all these gigs that these bands are doing and all these, underground places and whatnot? And then you find out they barely make any money doing that.
Well, it's a lot different if you do music as a hobby, but if it's something that you want to do as a career, it would behoove you to studying up on the business side of it. This way you don't get screwed.
Exactly, yeah. And that's where a lot of people, I think, split, because there are people who do it for fun that say, oh, if you're doing this to make money or whatnot, you're in the wrong profession. But it's like, if you love it so much that you want to do it as a career, why should you get shit on for wanting to do that?
I agree with you. And I think a lot of what it is, it's a lack of education about how the industry runs. And it's also a lack of available resources for people to look up how they could benefit themselves as a musician. I mean, there's no retirement plan.
Unless you're Gene Simmons.
I don't even know if Gene Simmons likes being Gene. Who the hell am I kidding? Of course he does.
Dude, you're talking about the God of Thunder with a bigger ego than David Lee Roth himself.
I love me some Dave, but I think he needs to calm down a little bit. I mean, at least he's sticking with the Twitter paintings. That's pretty.
Yeah, those were cool.
I heard the interview he did with Joe Rogan, and I'm just like, you know what? He's still Dave somewhere in there.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, that's where the split is. And that's where a lot of bands just really, I think, fall off the edge, is that they lose their way because they're so set in there. We're doing this because we love it. We could care less if we make any money. And then it goes nowhere.
Well, which is fine if you want to do that. But, if you say that and that's not what you really feel and it bites you on the ass, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my old band, we were doing a lot of touring. And we actually ended up getting the opportunity to sign with an independent label.
Oh, cool.
And I looked at the contract and it said label owns band's likeness, band's name, band's songs, band's publishing. And I'm just like, I'm not signing this.
Yeah. You're better off doing it yourself.
And I suggested that. This is in 2003, mind you. I suggested that, and they're like, no, you can't do that. And I said, why not?
Tom Schultz recorded the whole first Boston record in his basement.
Thank you. That was the first ever indie release ever released on a major label.
Like, come on. How many millions of copies did they sell? And they recorded it in his fucking basement.
11 billion? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, and it's the most timeless debut album that you could think of.
It's like a greatest hits package in one album.
It really is. Every song on there is played on the radio.
Still, and it's like, what, 45 years later?
Yeah, and they still use their music in commercials and in television.
Not only that, you still got people covering it on YouTube and making videos of it. It's crazy.
Exactly, and so for someone to say that it's not possible for you to do it on your own, that's the kind of person that I've probably come to realize. Maybe a little too late. I should have realized this younger as a kid. But those are the type of people you just gotta X out and be like, see ya.
Which is what I did. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any other band. So now I'm actually, at 40, and I don't feel like I'm starting late, but I'm right now writing music with two groups of friends of mine. Each is different. I'm going about doing it the right way, and it is a labor of love. If I can capitalize on it, great. If not, I'm still going to try. My hashtag for the show is that all art is valid. if you could capitalize from your art and share with the world and people like it, and if they want to purchase it, they'll purchase it. And I look at it this way, even if one person buys it, and I don't even need to distribute it because I'm happy. I have my family, I have my home. But for me, it's like, it's a love of music that I would even do it. And if one person buys it, even if they didn't, it would still give me a reason to continue to put it out. But if they like it, great. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And no, that's awesome. I'm glad you're getting back into it. And then I had no idea you toured and everything and all that. That's really cool.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
22.
Fuck me running. I'm 40, so technically I started doing it in Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. Right when you were hatched, good sir. When you were hatched.
1998.
Oh, you were hatched in 98?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then no, it was 3 years. It was 5 years later then.
Okay.
So this is right when you were discovering Randy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't discover Randy till I was 11.
6 years before you discovered Randy.
Yeah,
okay.
6 years before I discovered Randy. 5 years after that, I would have been 5 years old. I was just really getting into piano, and I just discovered who Queen was for the very first time. I got Queen Stone Cold Hits or something like that, and it was a greatest hits CD. The first song, Stone Cold Crazy.
I heard the Metallica version first, and I was like, wow, this is fast. Then I heard the Queen version. I said, wow, this is better.
Yeah, I don't, no offense, I don't like any of the stuff Metallica covers. Like, they did that Rainbow medley on the latest record.
Not a fan?
I'm like, really, guys? I get it. You like Deep Purple and Rainbow, but no, don't leave that stuff alone.
Damn, that's hateful!
If you consider the covers they did before 1990, like Killing Time and Bread Fan and things like that, I mean, top-notch stuff. You know,
if you're going to cover Rainbow, though, you need a special group of musicians, though, because to me, Rainbow's like touching classical music. I don't know why.
I agree.
But it's like Rainbow is just that band where either you have the emotion and the feeling for it and you understand the song content of it. Because if you listen to those songs from the self-titled Rainbow record, like Catch the Rainbow and Temple of the King, you got to understand what you're singing about if you want that song to come across the right way.
Yeah, Rising is my favorite Rainbow record, and you listen to that record, and it definitely takes a special group of musicians not only to be able to write that kind of music, but to perform it. I feel like Richie, he had it right with that record, and although some of the players did leave by the time Long Live Rock and Roll came out, just as good. And but Stargazer is my all-time favorite song.
Yeah.
A lot of artists cover it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them do, but I'm waiting for one to grab me the way Rainbow did it with Richie.
Yeah, and then you got songs like A Light in the Black, where it's
Love that song.
It's just train ride the whole way through. Another one is on 2 records after that. You listen to Lost in Hollywood, you get that same big composition vibe from it. Kind of like Megadeth does, where the song is in sections, but they all segue into each other.
I think that the album they did with Graham Bonnet, Down to Earth, was criminally underrated. A lot of people are hit and miss about Graham Bonnet's vocals, but I feel like he added a different dimension to Rainbow.
That's a record I could sit through the whole thing and not skip a song on it.
No, same here. You know, I mean, from the opening track, I mean, even the pop songs on it, like the Russ Ballard 10, Since You've Been Gone, and All Night Long, I mean, they are great pop rock songs. Yeah. You know, it doesn't need to be metal to be good. It just makes you know, it's just good shit.
Really, really big misconception that got ingrained into a lot of fans' heads was that it has to be metal and heavy all the time in order for it to be good.
See, I admit when I was younger, I used to think that. 93, when I was a teenager, that's when grunge came in and phased out metal. But what happened to metal, and a lot of people would be like, well, metal died in the 90s. No, it didn't. It retreated underground. So the bands that stuck it out are the ones that are still here. You know, I mean, people still herald the name of Typo Negative. Testament's still around and releasing stuff that rivals what their original 80s output. I still championed that stuff when everybody else was championing Pearl Jam and Nirvana. And although I'm not fans of those bands, I'm not discrediting them and saying that they don't have good musicians. I'm just not a fan. But, you know.
Well, the sadder part is that all those 80s bands got screwed by the company they helped really build up, and that was MTV.
I used to work for MTV, so I know exactly what you're saying.
And
11 and a
like,
half years of my life spent there.
yeah, like the minute Nirvana came out, didn't the president of MTV just say, pull all the 80s bands, we're done with them, and just focus on 90s grunge?
That's pretty much how it went down.
Yeah, the president just pulled all those videos out of rotation.
I mean, when you have Rancid on Headbangers Ball, and
Yeah.
I like Rancid, but Rancid's not a metal band, they're a punk band.
Yeah, exactly. That's now where you've ended up now with the result of people being labeled rock and metal who aren't even rock and metal bands.
Can someone please explain to me how 21 Pilots is a rock band? Because I don't get it.
Exactly, or how Miley Cyrus and Machine Gun Kelly were crowned the king and queen of rock for 2020 by, I think it was Rolling Stone magazine or something like that.
Please pull the other leg, why don't you? Are you serious?
I'm serious. I saw it, and I remember sending it to the guys in Sacred Oath, and I'm like, is this for real? How does Hannah Montana become the queen of rock in 2020?
Why? Because you're total and utter crap!
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I heard her do a killer version of Say Hello to Heaven for the Chris Cornell tribute. So
Yeah,
she can rock if she wants,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she's
But
not
then
a rocker.
No, she started off as a child pop sensation on television with Disney Channel just because of her dad. Billy Ray Cyrus, Achy Breaky Heart.
Dude, I remember when that was new. Let's not talk about it, please.
But, you know, now all of a sudden, Little Miss Pop Star swinging back and forth on a wrecking ball is now king of rock in 2020.
The parodies of that song are better.
I know. But that's the part that just blows my mind. So I guess she did a record with Billy Idol and Joan Jett recently.
I think she did an album of covers recently, and it was like mostly like rock bands on it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will give it a listen because I'd like to hear. I mean, I don't want to discredit something before I pass judgment on it. I mean, I want to hear it first.
Yeah, they ended up actually performing a pre-Super Bowl party they did called the TikTok Tailgate Festival. You can find the video on YouTube. Steve Stevens is spot on in the whole video. I only watched it to watch Steve Stevens play.
Oh, he's never not spot on. I
I
mean,
know. I'm like, Miley Cyrus, I want to watch Steve Stevens play. And then I'm watching the video. I'm like, how many people actually know that's Steve Stevens on stage with Billy Idol that are in the audience?
I hate to admit it. I think at this juncture, you need to be a guitar player to even know who Steve Stevens is.
And that's the sad thing, considering all the great work he did in the 80s and stuff.
Top Gun is one of those films that people still talk about. I'm like, do people not realize that's Steve Stevens in the end theme?
Know. Yeah.
I get goosebumps every time I hear that song.
Stevens is like Steve Lukather. He's like played on a bunch of people's stuff and you wouldn't even know it.
Another criminally underrated guitar player.
Yeah, exactly. Freaking Steve Lukather. He's another one. It's just like, dude. Wow.
People hear he's a guitar player in Toto and they think either Hold the Line or Africa or Rosanna.
Well,
and I'm
I'll go
like,
with Hold the Line because he does rip a great solo in Hold the Line.
I agree. To me, he's like Neil Schon almost because it's like, to me, they not only are they the longest lasting members in their respective bands, but they really bring the rock to those bands.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love them both as songwriters and as talents. So.
Yeah. But yeah, there's now been this whole culture now that, you know, oh, it's gotta be heavy to be good. It's like, no, it does. I mean, there's even songs on the Sacred Oath record that aren't traditionally 100% heavy the whole time, and there are still amazing songs.
I cannot wait to hear it. I'm glad that it's out, and I'm definitely going to check it out. And I promise you that I will give a full review on a different video from this. I will be honest, but chances are I'm going to like it anyways.
Thank you. It's an amazing record. For the first time, I can actually say I'm proud of something that I've played on that is of the original content world of things, because as a teenager, you know, I tried to do the whole, you know, write music, work with a producer in New York, the whole 9 yards, have a band and all. I was never satisfied with anything I ever wrote or anything I ever recorded, to where I didn't want anything to do with writing music. I was done with it. And I joined Sacred Oath. We toured for a couple years, toyed around the idea of doing a record together. When Rob was like, I want to do a new record. And I'm like, yes!
Jackpot.
I'm like, I've waited 3 years for this. 3 years. And I'm like, now I'm nervous. because I was like, well, I had recorded with them in the past, but not in this sense of where I have to bring my skills and ideas to the table. The record I did before this was just a live record, so all the songs on it had already been written and recorded on previous records before I ever joined the band. This scenario was a lot different for me because I actually had to sit there and come up with my own ideas. And I didn't know if the guys were going to like them or not, especially because we had never done something like this before. It was the first time. There was a lot going through my head at the time, but at the end of it, I listened to every song and I'm just like, I can't believe that we did this at the end of it. When we first got the final mix of it before it went to master and put it on my phone because I wanted to listen to it in the car, see if there was anything I had to listen for. I kid you not, I literally played the song start to finish for about a month. It was the only thing I would listen to, and I was like, I can't stop listening to it.
I know that feeling all too well. When I decided to leave the band that I was in after growing disenchanted with the scenario that happened, and I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, who's become my wife, I said, you know, I don't know if I could ever pick up a guitar again because I feel like I lost the love for it. Because when you're dealing with people whose mindset's completely different from yours and they're doing it for the wrong reason, to be a professional, successful musician and being a rock star are two completely different things. I remember telling my wife that, and she gave me a collection of demos that she was working on because my wife, Erin, is a graduate of the SUNY Purchase Conservatory of Music. And I heard the stuff that she was doing. I'm like, you need to record this.
Oh, she plays as well?
She's a piano player and she's a music teacher.
Awesome.
And I said, we need to find a producer to record your stuff. We found George Fullen, who I did an interview with him a couple of months ago, and you can find the 3-part interview on the channel, on the YouTube channel. You can listen to the audio for it. So he's produced a bunch of people. He's worked with Cyndi Lauper. He's worked with Alicia Keys. He's worked with Biohazard. He's worked with a lot of people of different genres. He liked Aaron's demos, and he said, I think we could work with this. And I just remember, oh my God, I'm recording an album. And when we were done, and it was a long process because the way I paid for it was working overtime at my job. And I took that money aside and said, okay, this is for recording. So for 4 years, it was straight recording. It was mixing, mastering. And then when we finally pressed 1,000 copies, I was like, we were both so proud. It's like she finally had a volume of music that she could say, this is my legacy. And I was proud because I'm like, I finally got to record an album. So I know what it's like, and God, you must have been like through the roof about that.
Oh yeah, I was, because like I said, when I used to record and write my own stuff in the past, I used to hate listening to it. Like I would get the mix.
You're your own worst critic. That's always the problem.
And I would sit there and I would want to rip my hair out listening to it because first and foremost, it was, to me, I felt forced to write the music. So I obviously wasn't going to have much of an attachment to it. With Sacred Oath, it felt really natural and it all just happened to where I didn't feel like I was struggling. I didn't feel like it was a pain in my neck or anything. I was just like, I was getting the demos from Rob. He would do them with Kenny, just the drums and basic guitar. And we would get to hear how the song developed over a course of maybe a week or so. I would already start just hearing ideas in my head, and I was like, okay, this is new. This hasn't happened to me before. I did hold off a little bit, mostly because of being nervous of having to, okay, I got to sit down and come up with something and guess whether they're going to like it or not. Because I had to do was, with the solos and stuff, I would get the track from Rob and we would have me come up with the ideas. I'd videotape myself and send them to him because he wanted us to have everything prepared to come in, which I was like, great, that's awesome, because the last thing I want to do is come in and just stand there and be like, I don't know what to play. You know, we didn't want to waste any time. You know, it's like come in with your parts ready, know what you're going to play. That also kind of really helped set me in because I had also never done that before either. When it came to solos, I would go in and kind of just wing it because I never felt I had the creative mindset to come up with my own solo. It was always just writing rhythm parts for me. When I would come up with a solo, it was all improvising.
And I'm sure, like, Yeah, and that's funny enough, that's the Ace Frehley school of thought because
Yeah.
he always improvised the solos. Of course, they all sounded the same because they were all based on a
Yeah.
minor blues pentatonic scale. I love
Yeah.
Ace Frehley. I'm not, don't get me wrong. I mean, he looked cool playing the guitar.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying though. When you're playing others' leads, you don't think about it. You listen to it and you're influenced to, learn it note for note. This way it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I could play this live if I wanted to, or I could entertain
Mhm.
myself and do it. When you actually have to sit there and write solos or record solos
Yeah.
from scratch, you could either improvise it or you could plan it out. But I get what you mean by phoning it in as opposed to letting something flow naturally.
Yeah. The way I looked at it, approaching the whole thing, I was like, you know what? I want to go into this with my best foot forward and with my best playing forward and with my best work. I'm not going to go into this half-ass and make a bad first impression, especially considering that I'm the new guy in the band. Not when it comes to like how long I've been in the band, but when it comes to doing a record with the band, yeah, I'm the new guy. This is the first studio record as a 5-piece. All the records previous have only been a 4-piece, so I really wanted to do my best on this and got the final mixes, and I enjoyed listening to every song on that record to where I could sit there and actually feel satisfied about it. I didn't feel like I hated listening to myself anymore. It was probably the most rewarding feeling, especially after all the years of having to sit and listen to myself play and hate listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I could finally sit there and be like, now that's it, and I'm actually proud of it.
Well, now you've set yourself up to a standard where it's like every future release, it's like you gotta top it. Are you okay with
Exactly.
that?
And that's the thing, and then I go back and I listen to my playing, and then I'm like, okay, now I gotta top that if we do another one.
Yeah, no pressure.
And the weirder part is, I never played like that before. What you hear on that record, I mean, I'm not trying to brag about myself or anything, but I was even surprised that that's what was coming out of my fingers when I listened back to it. Because go to before we ever started recording the album, I was strictly just teaching. I was playing on weekends and everything, but I didn't really feel like I had a sense of what my style was going to be or my sound that would define me as that's Damiano playing guitar. Like, you listen to Eddie Van Halen, if you closed your eyes and just hear the guitar, you know it's Eddie or Randy Rhoads. Those
Yeah.
signature sounds. That's what I was really struggling with before we ever started recording and writing for the album, because I was like, I really got to figure out who I'm going to be as a player so I don't sound like Randy or Eddie anymore.
So pretty much from the get-go, the biggest challenge that you met was to sound like you and not anyone else, essentially, is what you're saying?
Exactly, especially after all the years of playing in tribute bands where I had to play like somebody else and sound like someone else.
It's funny that you mentioned that because ever since we lost Eddie, it just seems like everyone out there is buying an EVH Wolfgang, or they're buying a 5150 amp, or they're buying the MXR Eddie Van Halen line, trying to sound like Eddie. And I'm thinking, this is not what Eddie would have wanted you to do. He didn't want you to play and sound and be him. He wanted you to do your own thing.
You'll hear some of the influences I pulled from Ed or from Randy in the solos, but I damn well tried my best to make my playing style stand out from theirs to where I can feel like it's actually me and original and that I'm not just copying something.
Before I got on the Zoom with you, I did look up your cover of Over the Mountain. Although I think you paid great homage to Randy, you didn't sound like Randy. You sounded like you. Like I could say, well, that's Damiano paying homage to Randy. There's a huge difference between paying homage and be a carbon copy.
Yeah. And I was actually a lot younger in that video. I had posted that video, I think, back in last April, but I had filmed it 2 years prior, and I just never put it on YouTube. It went up on Facebook when I did it. There was a lot of years I neglected my YouTube page, and I just didn't post anything. I was
It happens.
Facebook and Instagram because I was like, you know what? I was sick of posting stuff on YouTube and it really not garnering any attention. I would go the next week later and be like, oh, I only have 50 views. Great. But on Facebook, it would blow up overnight. and I'd end up with like 200 plus likes, 1,000 views the next morning.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the Facebook algorithm.
Yeah, I'm
It's
like, this makes no sense how I could post on one thing and it blows up, and post on another and it's just crickets.
probably because in Facebook there's more of a reach for people through your friends,
Yeah.
and their friends see it and then it blows up that way. With YouTube, you have so many content creators that are trying to put stuff out.
Yeah.
Like I make no mistake about it. I mean, this is a podcast. There's a million podcasts on YouTube
Yeah.
and on different audio streaming formats. I'm not trying to emulate what they do. I'm doing my own thing, and that's just having awesome conversations with like-minded musicians who
Yeah.
like you. It's a passion and a career. With others, it's fans of music or fans
Yeah.
of elements of art. I'm not trying to be Eddie Trunk. I mean, all due respect to Eddie Trunk, you know what I mean? Like, has he interviewed anyone past 1990? I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is, I don't want to blow your chances and hopefully, ruin your chances of getting on his show. But I'm just saying, like,
Well, did you know he retweeted the Worst Stars thing we did on his Twitter?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I could have. I thought you saw it.
I'm only in a clip. I'm in one clip of it. I'm singing the chorus. That's all I do.
I think I posted on my Facebook. If you go in my photos and stuff, you'll see the screenshot I posted of the tweet he made with the YouTube link on it.
He did mention it on the show, though, on his Sirius XM show. So that was pretty cool.
He mentioned it on the show too. Yeah. But he also I got to screenshot a tweet he made with the video in the tweet. So he actually also did tweet us.
That's pretty cool. But again, I was just in a clip during one chorus. You were highlighted. Okay, let's not make bones about it, man. You did a killer job.
Thank you. I mean, I wouldn't say I was highlighted. I mean, there was a bunch of other great guys who played.
Yeah, there was Jake from Completely Unchained, who's awesome.
Jake.
Gordon from the Bad Habits tribute. Johnny Wildchild was on it. I mean, so much great local talent, and I love them all. They're all great guys, and I definitely feel like the right guitar players were chosen for it. During the beginning of the pandemic, I was just like, well, I'm not gigging, so maybe I'll just go on Facebook Live and, play guitar to like a couple of my favorite tracks. And like, I was getting some viewers, which was pretty cool. And, somebody asked me about it. They're like, how did you feel about not being on the video? I'm like, thanks, Dick. No, I was, and I explained I was fine about it, because I was just like, I was happy to be a part of it. And if anything, I saw a group of guitar players who just made me want to play it that much more.
I almost ended up not being a part of it.
You did have some reservations about it, I remember.
Well, the funny thing was, I remember seeing some posting with an event page about there was going to be some meeting regarding talking about doing that video, and I think I had seen it from Rob Bora, who I'm friends with.
Happy birthday, Rob. It's your birthday, by the way.
Rob's birthday. I saw Rob about 3 weeks ago.
It was Rob's idea to get it off the ground.
I seen Rob's event page a couple days prior to that Zoom meeting, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, maybe they'll add, if they're getting local Long Island musicians from tribute bands, maybe they'll ask, Russ from Rock of Ages, because he lives in New York. And I remember the day of the Zoom meeting. I don't know what instinct in me told me to do it, but I just messaged Rob Bora and I was like, so what's the deal with this Zoom meeting thing for some sort of video collab? He's like, would you actually, be interested in doing it? We're doing the meeting tonight. I remember jumping out of the shower and being like, yeah, just send me the link. I threw my clothes on, jumped up on Zoom in like 5 minutes, and there they all were talking about it. And my hair was all wet, and I just got out of the shower.
Yeah, and I was about 40 pounds heavier too, so I'm thinking, I'm like, my God, everybody looks good. I look like shit, but whatever.
So that's how but yeah, I almost ended up not doing it just because originally I wasn't asked to do it. No one had ever approached me. I knew Rob. I knew Rob knew me from Rock of Ages, and we had already met each other at a couple Rock of Ages shows and rehearsals. So,
yeah, you guys are killing it on Long Island, and you're based in Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I'm from Connecticut. The rest of the guys are from Long Island, so Rick's from Long Island.
Is it the singer from Staten Island, supposedly?
No, Michael was from Queens.
Oh, my hometown. Nice.
Yeah, from Astoria.
That is my hometown. Holy shit.
Yeah, Michael's from Astoria, and Russ is from up in Harrison, New York, more near Connecticut for me.
Must be tough to get to everyone together for rehearsals and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's the running joke in the band, that trying to get the band members together for rehearsals, like trying to nail Jello to a tree.
Challenge accepted.
That's the running joke in Rock of Ages, that we can't ever get anyone together for rehearsal, but we always pull it off. And but yeah, that's why originally I almost didn't do it, because no one had approached me to do it. So I was like, well, if no one approached me, maybe they don't want me to play.
Well, I'm glad you did it, because I got to see your talent and
Thank
you
you,
ripped
man.
it. You killed it. I was just like, my God,
Thank
this is
you.
this guy's making me want to go back to like my 90s shredding days now.
Dude, I wish more people would ask me to play on their stuff, because I got all the stuff now to do it. I professionally recorded my parts for that with my interface that I have, and micing up the cab and everything, because I wanted to actually get starting myself into doing my videos of that quality, because I was like, you know what, I'm done just putting my phone there and letting the phone microphone record me playing with my amp and the track blasting and the sound quality not being the greatest.
I hear you. I'm fortunate that, like with me, when I record, I admit I record through GarageBand, but
That's
I do have an interface, and
Yeah.
I have my pedals ready, and I have them set up to the tone that I want,
Yeah.
and I have the amp settings in GarageBand for how I want. I'm happy to say that with the cover songs that Rat Salad Review, a bunch of the podcasters, myself, Wayne, and Ralph, what we did was we did a cover of Atomic Punk from Van Halen, and we also recently just did a cover of Hunting High and Low from Stradivarius. And right now we're
Nice.
working on a cover of Black Widow. The nicest compliment that I got was from someone that said, "You sound like what I told you about, your homage to Randy." They said, "You paid tribute to Eddie without trying to be Eddie, and it
Yeah.
sounded great." And I was like, "That's what I was going for.
Yeah,
That's crazy."
It's funny you mention that with the Over the Mountain video, because back then I was trying my hardest to sound like Randy and just mimic
I'm
him.
sure that was my gateway to Randy, was hearing Over the Mountain the first time and thinking, "Oh my God." I remember being 4 years old and thinking,
Yeah.
"This is the greatest thing I ever heard." Fuck Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes on Sesame Street. I like this.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, I mean, just to touch on the Randy thing a little bit, I mean, I say now that was that's what I was trying to do, but it was just for like the sake of the video, because in regards to a video, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do videos and stuff covering all these dudes, I at least want to sound or try to sound like them. So
I
I can get
understand
my
that, yeah.
playing down, and then it turned into a couple years late. Well, when I first did my first couple Randy videos, I was only about 15 or 16. Then it turned into, okay, join an Ozzy tribute, and next thing you know, I start being labeled all over Facebook as, the reincarnation of Randy Rhoads and stuff, and I'm like, really?
I could see how that could throw somebody off and be like, no, no, no. It's because it's like,
I mean, it's one thing if people are going to compliment me and say, look, you got his tone spot on, and, you've worked hard on that, and, you can achieve sounding like that. But to be calling me the reincarnation of him, or I've even been called the second coming of Randy Rhoads, and I'm like, no.
It's like Randy was Randy, you're Damiano, and you want to do Damiano. I get it.
Exactly. And I grew out of that phase, I want to say, around the time that the pandemic started, maybe before the pandemic started, when I finally just started to develop my own unique playing style that I could listen to and be like, yeah, okay, I'm satisfied with this. This is going to help define my sound and set me apart from everyone else. So,
which is important. And I'd like to think, though, you being in tribute bands for Ozzy and Def Leppard, you're listening to some killer guitar players.
Oh yeah.
So to emulate what they do on a weekly basis, whenever you're out playing the tributes, it could only help you improve your playing. And
Exactly.
all that amalgamation of all that influence can make you more of your own player, because it's like you're listening to Randy, or you're listening to Jake, you're listening to Eddie, you're listening to Steve Clark, Pete Willis, Phil Collen,
Yeah.
and they all sound different. And I always say that the best guitarists are the ones that are a melting pot of all their influences,
Yeah.
coming out with like their own, one of a kind, custom made, not for sale sound.
Exactly. And I would say a lot of the people I pulled influences from to define my playing for this record, I mean, are basically the ones I've looked up to since I started playing the guitar. I mean, there's a couple in there that I didn't really make them my idols until later on when I was older. But that being said, I mean, I finally feel like now I've developed something that is a mixture of all of them, but is helping me pave the way to what's going to sound like Damiano Christian and not a copy of, Eddie Van
Everybody else, exactly.
Halen,
That's what's up.
So, and that was my biggest goal with the new Sacred Oath album too. Aside from putting my best work forward, I also wanted to establish myself as like a force in the scene as this young guitar player who's got his own thing going on. And he's developing it and always improving it and sounds like himself.